The air was thick with the scent of ozone, sharp and electric, mingling with something else, something ancient and cloying that always heralded their presence. It was the metallic tang of old blood, faint but undeniable, woven through with a dark, sweet undertone that made the hairs on Ilara's arms prickle. This was the signature of the night's true rulers, a scent that had been etched into her very being since childhood. Ilara moved like a phantom through the labyrinthine alleys of the city's forgotten district, her boots silent, almost weightless, on the damp cobblestones. Rain had just fallen, leaving the brickwork slick and gleaming under the sparse, sickly yellow glow of a distant, flickering street lamp. Every shadow seemed to deepen, to stretch and writhe, holding secrets. Her heart, a steady, disciplined drum against her ribs, was the only sound she allowed herself to acknowledge, a counterpoint to the quiet thrum of her own focused adrenaline. Every other sense was tuned, stretched thin, searching, reaching out into the oppressive stillness. She was a hunter, born into a lineage that had waged a silent, brutal war against the night for centuries. The weight of generations of sacrifice and vengeance pressed on her shoulders, a mantle she wore with grim determination. Her hands, calloused and strong from years of training, gripped the hilt of the silver dagger at her belt, its cold metal a familiar comfort. Her eyes, the color of storm clouds gathering over a desolate landscape, scanned every shadow, every flicker of movement, seeking the telltale signs of the predator she pursued. Tonight, the hunt was personal, etched with the fresh grief of a life unjustly taken. A young woman, barely out of her teens, had been found drained in her apartment, a single precise bite mark on her neck, 2 perfectly symmetrical punctures, too clean, too artful for a lesser creature. It was the undeniable signature of a particular kind of monster. One Ilara knew, one she had been chasing with a relentless, burning fury for weeks. This was the one they called the Crimson Weaver, a creature of terrifying elegance and lethal precision. A faint whisper, like silk rustling against velvet, reached her. Not a sound exactly, but a vibration in the air, a disturbance in the stillness, a subtle shift in the very fabric of the night. It was the subtle hum of immense power, the intoxicating aura of a creature of the night, a being that defied mortal understanding. Close, very close. The air around her seemed to thicken, to hum with an unseen energy. Ilara pressed herself against a cold, grimy wall, the rough brick biting into her cheek, her breath held, every muscle coiled and ready. The scent grew stronger now, a complex bouquet of old blood, the heady sweetness of night-blooming jasmine, and something else. Something dangerously alluring, like dark honey and forbidden wine, a scent that bypassed her logical mind and went straight to a primal, hungry part of her. It was Lyra. She had only seen Lyra once before, a fleeting glimpse in the chaos of a crowded market, a moment that had stopped time. The image was seared into her mind, a vivid, unwelcome brand. Hair like spun obsidian, cascading around a face of ethereal beauty, eyes that held the depth of a moonless night sky, ancient and knowing, and a smile that could promise both ecstasy and oblivion. In that brief, chaotic moment, Ilara had felt it then, a strange, unwelcome tremor that had nothing to do with fear and everything to do with a primal, magnetic pull she vehemently denied. It was a pull that defied her training, her duty, her very identity. Now that pull was a physical ache, a throbbing behind her eyes, a tightening in her chest. It was a siren's call, dangerous and irresistible. She rounded a corner, her movements fluid and silent, a predator mimicking a ghost, and there she was, Lyra, standing in the center of a small, deserted courtyard, bathed in the ethereal, almost holy glow of the rising moon. She wasn't feeding, wasn't hunting. She was simply existing. Her head was tilted back, exposing the elegant line of her throat. Eyes closed, a faint, almost imperceptible smile playing on her lips, a smile of quiet contentment that seemed utterly out of place on a creature of such darkness. A single drop of crimson, like a perfectly formed ruby tear, clung to the corner of her mouth, a stark, shocking contrast against her pale, almost translucent skin. It was a testament to her recent meal, a stark reminder of what she was. Ilara's hand instinctively went to her dagger, her fingers closing around the familiar hilt. This was it. The moment she had trained for, lived for, sacrificed for. The monster was vulnerable. This was her chance. But something held her back. A split-second hesitation, born not of fear, but of a profound, unsettling awe. The sheer, unadulterated beauty of the creature before her was paralyzing. It wasn't just physical perfection. It was an ancient grace, a profound stillness that radiated immense power and a strange, melancholic peace. Ilara felt a pang, sharp and unexpected, a question forming in her mind, insidious and dangerous. Could something so breathtakingly beautiful truly be pure evil? Could such ancient serenity truly harbor such monstrous intent? The thought was heresy. Then Lyra's eyes snapped open. Those dark, fathomless pools, like polished obsidian, fixed on Ilara, and a slow, knowing smile spread across her face. It wasn't a predatory grin, not a snarl of a beast cornered, but one of amusement, perhaps even recognition, as if she had been expecting Ilara all along. There was no surprise, only a calm, almost welcoming acceptance. "Took you long enough, little hunter." Lyra's voice was a low, husky murmur, like a cello string vibrating in the quiet night, rich with centuries of forgotten stories. It sent a shiver down Ilara's spine, a sensation that was both warning and invitation, a thrill that was entirely inappropriate. Ilara lunged, her movements honed by years of brutal, unforgiving training, every muscle screaming defiance. The silvered blade flashed, a streak of moonlight, aimed straight for Lyra's heart, the only sure way to end a creature like her. But Lyra moved with impossible speed, a blur of motion, a ripple in the air. She wasn't just fast. She was fluid, almost dancing around Ilara's attack, an elegant evasion that mocked Ilara's raw aggression. Their bodies met, not in a clash of weapons, but in a sudden, unexpected embrace. Lyra's arms wrapped around Ilara, pinning her arms effortlessly, pulling her impossibly close. Ilara felt the cool, smooth silk of Lyra's skin against her own, the surprising, almost terrifying strength of her grip. The scent of jasmine and dark honey enveloped her, intoxicating, overwhelming her senses, clouding her judgment. It was a scent that promised oblivion, a surrender she hadn't known she craved. "Such fire," Lyra whispered, her lips brushing Ilara's ear, the soft touch sending a jolt of pure electricity, a shock wave through her entire body. Such passion, a waste to extinguish it. Her breath, cool and sweet, feathered against Ilara's skin, a stark contrast to the burning heat that now flared within Ilara. Ilara struggled, her muscles screaming, fighting against a hold that felt both gentle and utterly unyielding. Their chests were pressed together, Ilara's rapid, frantic heartbeat thudding against Lyra's unervingly still one. She could feel the subtle shift of Lyra's body against hers, the delicate curve of her hip, the firm press of her thigh, the soft brush of her unbound hair. It was a dance of predator and prey, but the lines were blurring, becoming dangerously intertwined, a sensual entanglement that defied all logic. Lyra's gaze locked with hers, those dark eyes holding a depth that threatened to pull Ilara under, to drown her in their ancient secrets. There was no malice there, no hunger for blood, only a profound ancient curiosity. And something else. A flicker of raw, undeniable desire that mirrored the sudden, shocking spark igniting within Alara, a forbidden flame she had no right to feel. "You smell of vengeance," Lyra murmured, her voice a caress, a silken thread wrapping around Alara's heart, but also longing. Her thumb, cool and light, traced the line of Alara's jaw, sending a tremor through her, a wave of sensation that made her knees weak. "What do you truly hunger for, little hunter? Is it truly just blood and vengeance?" The words were a challenge, a profound seduction, and a question that pierced through Alara's rigid resolve, through the very core of her identity. She felt a heat rise in her cheeks, a flush that had nothing to do with exertion and everything to do with Lyra's proximity. Her intimate touch, the sheer, overwhelming intimacy of the moment. Her breath hitched, caught in her throat. This was wrong. Everything about this was wrong. She was supposed to kill this creature, not be captivated by her, not yearn for her touch. Lyra's gaze dropped to Alara's lips, lingering there, a silent, potent invitation that Alara felt deep in her bones. The air crackled between them, thick with unspoken possibilities, with the dangerous, intoxicating allure of the forbidden. Alara felt her body betraying her, a strange, unfamiliar ache unfurling low in her belly, a coil of desire she had never known. Her fingers, still gripping the hilt of her dagger, trembled not from fear, but from a desperate, burgeoning need. Then, as swiftly as she had appeared, Lyra released her. The sudden absence of contact left Alara reeling, a phantom warmth lingering where Lyra's body had been, a ghost of a touch that haunted her skin. Lyra stepped back, her smile enigmatic, her eyes still holding Alara's, a silent promise in their depths. "Until next time, Alara," she whispered, her voice carrying on the night breeze, a promise and a threat, a haunting melody that would echo in Alara's mind. And then she was gone, vanished into the shadows, a ripple in the darkness, leaving Alara alone in the deserted courtyard, heart pounding a frantic rhythm, body trembling with a mixture of adrenaline and something far more dangerous, and a new, terrifying hunger stirring within her. The hunt had changed, irrevocably. Alara returned to the Hunters Guild headquarters, the stone walls and polished steel feeling more like a cage than a sanctuary. The familiar scent of old leather and sharpened steel, usually a comfort, now felt stifling, almost suffocating. Her boots, usually silent, seemed to echo too loudly in the hushed corridors, each step a jarring reminder of the encounter she had just left. Her mind, usually a precise instrument of logic and strategy, was a chaotic storm. Lyra's image, vivid and intoxicating, played on a relentless loop. The curve of her smile, the depth of her eyes, the cool silk of her skin against Alara's own. The encounter wasn't just a memory. It was a physical sensation, a phantom warmth lingering where Lyra's body had pressed against hers, a ghost of a touch that haunted her skin, making her ache. She moved through the guild's training grounds, past the silent, watchful portraits of her ancestors, grim-faced men and women who had dedicated their lives to the eradication of creatures like Lyra. Each painted eye seemed to accuse her, to demand an explanation for the tremor in her hands, the uncharacteristic flush on her cheeks. She struggled with her failure to kill Lyra, the inexplicable pull she felt, and the strange, unsettling feelings that now festered beneath her hardened exterior. It was a poison in her veins, threatening to unravel centuries of unwavering purpose. She thought to herself, "This is madness. She is the enemy, the Crimson Weaver, the one who took that girl's life. Why did I hesitate? Why did her touch? Why did it feel like a revelation instead of a threat?" Her duty, ingrained since birth, a sacred vow whispered over the graves of her fallen kin, clashed violently with the inexplicable dangerous pull she felt towards the very creature she'd sworn to destroy. Flashbacks to the encounter were vivid, almost hallucinatory, focusing on Lyra's eyes. Those fathomless pools that held ancient secrets and a terrifying, mirroring desire. Her husky voice, the intoxicating scent of jasmine and dark honey, the feel of her cool, smooth skin. She tried desperately to rationalize it as a hunter's fascination with her prey, a tactical error, a moment of weakness. But a deeper, more carnal truth gnawed at her. A hunger she hadn't known she possessed, a longing that felt dangerously like surrender. She found herself replaying Lyra's words. "What do you truly hunger for, little hunter?" And the question resonated with a disturbing truth. She spent hours in the guild's ancient archives, the musty smell of old parchment and forgotten spells filling her nostrils. Ostensibly, she was researching Lyra's past victims, seeking patterns, weaknesses. But in truth, she was searching for her. For any scrap of information that could explain the anomaly that was Lyra. She found discrepancies in the guild's records, accounts of Crimson Weaver attacks that didn't quite fit the brutal, indiscriminate nature of other vampires. Some victims were already near death, others had a history of seeking out danger, almost inviting it. This sowed further seeds of doubt, a tiny crack in the foundation of her black and white world. The more she learned, the more Lyra defied the monstrous stereotypes she had been taught. From her hidden ancient lair, a forgotten crypt beneath the city, adorned with stolen art from forgotten eras and centuries of accumulated knowledge in crumbling tomes, Lyra found herself equally, perhaps even more, fascinated by Alara. The hunter's raw strength, her unwavering conviction, the fire in her storm-cloud eyes, and the surprising vulnerability she had glimpsed in Alara's desperate struggle intrigued her beyond measure. Lyra had observed countless humans, seen their fleeting passions and their inevitable demise. But Alara was different. She was a burning ember in the cold, endless night of Lyra's existence. Through subtle surveillance, ancient magics, and a network of unseen eyes, Lyra observed Alara from afar. She watched the hunter's restless movements within the guild, saw the tension in her shoulders, the way she ran a hand through her hair in frustration. She saw Alara poring over ancient texts, and a faint, knowing smile touched Lyra's lips. "She's looking for me," Lyra thought, a thrill ancient and potent, stirring within her. But what will she find? Hints of Lyra's ancient, lonely existence were revealed through her internal thoughts and the artifacts she surrounded herself with. She'd seen empires rise and fall, witnessed countless lives flicker and die like candles in the wind. She carried the weariness of immortality, the crushing weight of endless time, and the endless, futile conflict between her kind and the hunters. She was tired of the bloodshed, tired of the constant hiding, tired of the profound isolation that was the true curse of her existence. Alara represented something new, something vibrant and dangerous that stirred a long-dormant part of her, a part that yearned for connection, for warmth, for a passion that transcended the cold reality of her life. She remembered Alara's scent, the sharp, clean scent of ozone and human vitality, a stark contrast to her own cold, eternal existence. It was a scent that promised life, and a longing she hadn't felt in centuries. Alara, driven by a desperate need to understand, or perhaps a subconscious desire to find Lyra again, to feel that dangerous embrace once more, found herself drawn to the city's older, more forgotten districts, the places Lyra frequented. She continued her research, but it was a flimsy excuse. She was hunting, yes, but the prey had become the obsession. Lyra, sensing Alara's growing fascination, subtly orchestrated chance encounters. These were not direct confrontations, but tense, brief moments in unexpected places designed to draw Ilara deeper into her orbit. A crowded museum, where Lyra's dark eyes would meet Ilara's across a sea of oblivious tourists, a silent acknowledgement passing between them, a spark of recognition that made Ilara's breath catch. A secluded park bench at twilight, where Lyra would be reading an ancient text. Her presence a magnetic pull Ilara couldn't resist. A late-night cafe, where Lyra would be sipping a dark, steaming liquid, not blood, but something equally rich and mysterious, her gaze lingering on Ilara as she passed. They exchanged loaded glances, cryptic words that only they understood, and fleeting, almost accidental touches that sent shivers through Ilara's entire being. A hand brushing hers as they reached for the same book in an antique shop, a shoulder grazing in a narrow alleyway, a shared moment of stillness in a bustling crowd. Each touch, however brief, was an electric current, a jolt of forbidden intimacy that left Ilara trembling. The air between them became thick with unspoken desire, a palpable tension that hummed beneath the surface of their interactions. Both of them were increasingly consumed by thoughts of the other. The forbidden aspect was heavily emphasized through their internal struggles, the risks they were taking by even thinking of each other, let alone seeking each other out. Ilara felt a constant ache, a phantom touch on her skin, a yearning for Lyra's presence that gnawed at her resolve. She found herself tracing the lines of Lyra's face in her mind, remembering the feel of her hair, the sound of her voice. Lyra, in turn, found herself drawn to Ilara's vitality, her human warmth, the fierce light in her eyes, a stark contrast to her own cold, eternal existence. The sexual tension built with every near-miss and stolen glance, a silent promise of what could be, if only they dared to break every rule. The longing was a physical weight, a constant pressure in their chests, urging them closer despite the danger. Each encounter, however brief, was a tantalizing taste of a connection they both knew was impossible, yet desperately craved. The city, usually a symphony of muted night sounds, was suddenly ripped apart by a discordant cacophony. Screams, raw and terrified, tore through the stillness, followed by the sickening crunch of breaking glass and guttural snarls that were far too animalistic to be human. Ilara, on a restless, aimless patrol that was more about seeking Lyra than hunting, felt her hunter's instincts snap to attention. This wasn't the precise, almost surgical work of the Crimson Weaver. This was chaos, unbridled, mindless violence. A new, more savage threat had emerged from the shadows. She raced towards the disturbance, her heart pounding with a different kind of urgency now. The familiar thrum of duty, a welcome anchor in the swirling confusion of her emotions. She found a scene of carnage, a small, independent art gallery, its windows shattered, its delicate sculptures reduced to rubble. Two bodies lay sprawled, brutally drained, but with none of Lyra's elegant precision. These were savage, tearing bites, the work of something feral, something uncontrolled. Just as Ilara identified the signature. A newly turned, uncontrolled group of vampires, perhaps, or a rogue ancient clan driven by pure, unadulterated hunger. A shadow detached itself from the deeper darkness of the alleyway opposite, Lyra. Their eyes met across the devastation, and for the first time, there was no veiled amusement, no subtle seduction. Only a shared understanding, a grim recognition of a common enemy. Lyra's usual enigmatic smile was replaced by a tight, almost disgusted line. "Amateurs," she murmured, her voice laced with ancient contempt, barely audible over the distant sirens now wailing closer. "They sully the night." Before Ilara could react, Another snarl erupted from within the shattered gallery, and a hulking, grotesque figure lunged out, its eyes burning with mindless bloodlust. Elara drew her silvered dagger, but Lyra moved faster. A blur of obsidian hair and pale skin, she intercepted the creature, her movements a deadly, elegant dance. She wasn't just fighting. She was disarming, incapacitating, showing a chilling mastery that went beyond mere strength. She moved with a silent fury, her ancient power unleashed not for sustenance, but for order. "They're uncontrolled," Lyra hissed, her voice low and urgent as she parried a wild swipe from another emerging brute. "Newly turned, or perhaps too long starved. They have no discipline, no code." Elara, momentarily stunned by Lyra's raw power and the unexpected alliance, quickly regained her composure. This wasn't the time for questions. This was a threat to both their worlds. She moved to Lyra's side, her silvered blade a perfect complement to Lyra's silent, devastating strikes. They fought as one, a seamless, deadly partnership. Elara's precision and agility, honed by rigorous training, combined with Lyra's ancient strength and supernatural speed. Elara covered Lyra's blind spots. Lyra anticipated Elara's next move. It was a terrifying, exhilarating ballet of violence, a dance they were born to, but never expected to perform together. During this brutal cooperation, they were forced into close proximity, navigating dangerous situations together, their bodies moving in sync, a silent understanding passing between them. They exchanged tactics with brief, sharp glances, covered each other's backs with instinctive precision, and witnessed each other's raw power and, surprisingly, a shared, almost compassionate disdain for the senseless destruction. Lyra, for all her monstrous nature, showed a profound respect for life, albeit a different kind of life. As the last of the rogue vampires fell, dissolving into ash, the air grew still once more, heavy with the metallic tang of fresh blood and the acrid smell of burnt flesh. They stood side by side, chests heaving, Elara's, breathing in the aftermath, their weapons still poised. The adrenaline began to recede, leaving behind a profound exhaustion and something else, a strange, unsettling intimacy. "You fight well, little hunter," Lyra said, her voice softer now, a hint of the old amusement returning to her eyes, though tempered by the recent violence. She looked at Elara, a flicker of admiration in her gaze. "Better than most of your kind." Elara, still catching her breath, met Lyra's gaze. "And you," she retorted, her voice rough, "are not what I expected." The words hung in the air, a tacit acknowledgement of the profound shift in their dynamic. They had seen each other's true capabilities, and in the crucible of shared danger, a fragile, dangerous common ground had been forged. The scent of jasmine and dark honey, now mingled with the scent of battle, seemed to cling to Lyra, drawing Elara in, even amidst the grim reality of their situation. The longing, momentarily suppressed by the fight, flared anew, hotter and more potent than before. The uneasy truce forged in the crucible of battle had deepened, subtly, dangerously. Their secret meetings became more frequent and deliberate, driven by an insatiable curiosity and a deepening emotional connection that neither could deny. They sought out neutral, hidden places, sanctuaries away from the prying eyes of both hunters and vampires. A secluded rooftop garden, high above the city's ceaseless hum, became their favored spot. Here, amidst the fragrant jasmine and climbing roses, under the watchful gaze of a silent, indifferent moon, they could shed their roles, if only for a few precious hours. The air was cool, carrying the faint scent of damp earth and night-blooming flowers, a comforting counterpoint to the racing of Elara's heart. The city lights below twinkled like scattered jewels, a distant, oblivious world. They began to share their histories in earnest, peeling back layers of centuries-old conflict and personal pain. Ilara, usually guarded and stoic, her emotions locked away behind a formidable shield, found herself speaking of her lineage with a raw honesty that surprised even herself. She recounted the brutal training from childhood that had stripped away any softness, replacing it with steel and unwavering resolve. She spoke of the faces of her kin lost to vampire attacks, the sacred vow she carried to avenge them, a burden that had shaped her entire existence. The words were difficult, torn from a place of deep-seated grief and duty, but as she spoke, Lyra listened, her dark eyes fathomless pools of understanding, occasionally reaching out to lightly trace a line on Ilara's hand, a touch that sent shivers through the hunter, a warmth that seeped into her very bones, melting some of the ice around her heart. It was a silent invitation to continue, a promise of acceptance. Ilara spoke of the isolation of her duty, the weight of expectation, the constant vigilance that left no room for vulnerability, for love, for anything but the hunt. She revealed the gnawing loneliness that had been her constant companion, a void she hadn't realized could be filled until now. Lyra, in turn, recounted centuries of existence, her voice a low, melodic murmur, weaving tales of empires risen and fallen, of forgotten loves and profound losses that stretched across millennia. She spoke of the crushing burden of immortality, the weariness of endless time, the constant need to adapt and hide, and the profound isolation that was the true curse of her existence. She revealed the true complex nature of her feeding, not a mindless bloodlust, but a delicate, almost symbiotic exchange. She only took from willing donors, or those who were already dying, offering them a fleeting moment of transcendent ecstasy in exchange for a life gently fading, a final, beautiful release. Or, she confessed, she siphoned emotional energy, the raw power of human passion and despair, a different kind of sustenance that left no physical mark, differentiating her completely from the savage, uncontrolled monsters Ilara had been trained to hunt. "I take what is offered, little hunter," Lyra whispered, her gaze intense, her voice a silken thread. "Not what is stolen. I have never taken a life unwillingly, never caused suffering for sport." This revelation shattered Ilara's preconceived notions, leaving her reeling, forcing her to confront the ingrained prejudice she had carried her entire life. The monster she was meant to destroy was, in her own way, a guardian, a creature of a different, more nuanced darkness. The air between them became thick with unspoken desire, a palpable tension that hummed beneath the surface of their confessions, a silent song of lust and yearning. As they shared their deepest truths, stripping away the masks of hunter and hunted, the longing became almost unbearable, a physical ache that demanded release. The first tender touches began, hesitant at first, then bolder, driven by an irresistible force, a magnetic pull that defied all logic and reason. A hand brushing across a cheek, fingers intertwining, a shared glance that lingered, filled with unspoken longing and a dangerous, mirroring lust. Ilara's hand would find Lyra's, her calloused thumb tracing the smooth, cool skin, memorizing the delicate bones beneath, feeling the faint, cool pulse that was so unlike her own. Lyra, in turn, would cup Ilara's face, her touch like cool silk, her thumb stroking Ilara's jawline, sending a tremor through the hunter's entire body, a shiver that was both pleasure and fear. They explored each other's faces, their hands, tracing lines, memorizing textures, a silent language of burgeoning intimacy that transcended words. Ilara found herself mesmerized by the subtle, almost imperceptible pulse in Lyra's throat, the perfect curve of her lips, the way her hair fell around her shoulders like a dark, silken waterfall, inviting her touch. Lyra, in turn, was captivated by the flush that rose in Alara's cheeks, the subtle tremor in her hands, the raw, untamed passion that simmered beneath her disciplined, hardened exterior, a fire that Lyra, in her long existence, had rarely encountered. Each touch, each shared breath, each whispered secret deepened the bond, making it harder, almost impossible, to return to their separate, warring lives. The forbidden nature of their connection only amplified the desire, making every stolen moment, every shared glance, every lingering touch, a potent intoxicant, a dangerous drug they both craved. The longing was a constant thrum beneath their skin, a silent song of lust and yearning that promised both ecstasy and ruin, a path they were increasingly willing to walk, hand in hand, into the unknown. They were two opposing forces, drawn together by an undeniable primal magnetism, their very beings screaming for the other, regardless of the consequences. The confessions had stripped them bare, leaving their souls exposed and vulnerable. Now, the physical manifestation of their burgeoning connection became inevitable, a force as undeniable as gravity. The tension that had hummed between them for weeks, building with every stolen glance and accidental touch, reached a fever pitch. The rooftop garden, with its open sky and distant city hum, had been for words. Now they needed a sanctuary for unspoken desires. Lyra led Alara deeper into her hidden lair, a space that was both ancient and opulent, far removed from the harsh realities of the world above. The air here was thick with a scent of jasmine, mingled with something rich and earthy, the unique essence of Lyra herself, now intoxicatingly familiar to Alara. Soft, indirect light from glowing crystals and enchanted artifacts cast warm, inviting shadows, turning the cavernous space into a cocoon of intimacy. The first kiss, when it came, was hesitant, a tentative exploration of uncharted territory. Alara, still reeling from the weight of Lyra's confessions and the shattering of her worldview, leaned in, her breath catching in her throat. Lyra met her halfway, her touch feather-light as her fingers brushed Alara's jaw. Then, as if a dam had broken, the hesitation vanished, replaced by a desperate, hungry urgency. Their lips met, soft at first, then pressing, demanding, a collision of worlds, a release of all the pent-up desire and forbidden longing that had consumed them. Alara tasted dark honey and something ancient, intoxicating on Lyra's lips, a flavor that ignited a fire deep within her. Lyra, in turn, savored the human warmth, the vibrant life force that radiated from Alara, a stark contrast to her own cool existence. The kiss deepened, becoming a fierce, consuming embrace. Alara's hands tangled in Lyra's obsidian hair, pulling her closer, desperate for more. Lyra's arms wrapped around Alara's waist, pulling her flush against her, the cool silk of Lyra's clothes a tantalizing barrier. Their bodies pressed together, Alara's rapid heartbeat thudding against Lyra's unervingly still one, a rhythm of life and eternity. Every nerve ending in Alara's body seemed to awaken, tingling with a heightened awareness she had never experienced. The scent of Lyra enveloped her, intoxicating, overwhelming, blurring the edges of reality. This first kiss was merely the prelude, a spark igniting a conflagration. It led to more intimate moments, a slow, deliberate exploration of each other's bodies, a dance of surrender and discovery that defied their roles and the very laws of their existence. Lyra's touch was exquisite, precise, awakening dormant sensations in Alara. Her cool fingers traced the curve of Alara's spine, sending shivers that were purely pleasure. Her lips, soft and knowing, moved from Alara's mouth to her jawline, down the sensitive skin of her neck, eliciting soft gasps. Ilara, in turn, explored the smooth, almost porcelain skin of Lyra's shoulders, the elegant line of her collarbone, the surprising strength beneath the delicate facade. Her touch was hesitant at first, then emboldened by Lyra's soft murmurs of encouragement, her own rising desire. The steamy elements escalated here, conveying lust and desire through vivid sensory descriptions. The rustle of clothes as they were shed, piece by piece, revealing skin that craved touch. The contrast of Lyra's cool, almost ethereal skin against Ilara's flushed, human warmth. The intoxicating scent of their mingled essences, a heady perfume of jasmine, ozone, and raw desire. The soft sounds of their breaths mingling, quickening, hitching. Lyra's ancient eyes, usually so guarded, now held a raw, primal hunger that mirrored Ilara's own burgeoning lust. Ilara felt a deep, aching throb low in her belly, a yearning that demanded to be sated. Lyra, in turn, reveled in the vibrant energy, the pure, unadulterated passion that radiated from Ilara, a sustenance more profound than any blood. They moved together, a slow, sensual rhythm of bodies entwined. Lyra's touch was both delicate and possessive, her fingers tracing the contours of Ilara's body, memorizing every curve, every dip. Ilara arched into her touch, a silent plea for more, her hands clutching Lyra's back, feeling the taut muscles beneath her cool skin. The world outside the lair ceased to exist. There was only the intoxicating present, the press of skin, the taste of forbidden lips, the dizzying rush of pure, unadulterated pleasure. They explored each other's vulnerabilities, their strengths, their hidden desires, finding a profound connection that transcended the physical, though the physical was gloriously, overwhelmingly present. They acknowledged the utter impossibility of their situation, the danger, the betrayal, the world that would condemn them. But in that moment, wrapped in each other's arms, they were too deeply entangled, too profoundly connected to pull away. Their bodies spoke a language their minds tried to deny, a language of desperate need and consuming passion. Each touch, each kiss, each shared breath deepened the bond, making it harder, almost impossible, to return to their separate lives. The forbidden nature of their connection only amplified the desire, making every stolen moment, every shared glance, every lingering touch, a potent intoxicant, a dangerous drug they both craved. They were falling, irrevocably, into a love that promised both ecstasy and ruin. The intoxicating haze of their shared intimacy began to lift, replaced by a chilling awareness of the world outside their secret sanctuary. Both Ilara and Lyra, despite their best efforts, could not entirely erase the subtle changes their forbidden connection had wrought. The world, it seemed, was beginning to notice. Within the stark, disciplined walls of the Hunters' Guild, Ilara's colleagues, honed the intoxicating haze of their shared intimacy began to lift, replaced by a chby years of suspicion and vigilance, began to observe her with increasing scrutiny. Her stern mentor, a grizzled veteran named Kale, whose eyes missed nothing, noticed her lack of progress on the Lyra case. The Crimson Weaver, once Ilara's singular obsession, seemed to have faded from her immediate priority, a fact that Kale found deeply unsettling. He saw her increasing distraction during training exercises, her movements less precise, her focus wavering, her mind clearly elsewhere. Her unexplained absences, once easily dismissed as solo reconnaissance missions, now raised eyebrows. Whispers, low and conspiratorial, followed Ilara through the guild halls. A jealous rival, perhaps a younger hunter named Anya, who had always resented Ilara's natural talent and Kale's mentorship, began to openly question Ilara's dedication, planting seeds of doubt among the other hunters. "She's not herself," Anya would murmur, just loud enough for others to hear. Softening, perhaps? Or worse, compromised. The scent of ozone and steel in the guild now felt tainted by the acrid smell of suspicion. Meanwhile, in the hidden ancient strata of the vampire society, Lyra's unusual behavior was also noted. The Vampire Council, a collection of ancient powerful beings who ruled with an iron fist and an even colder heart, sensed her growing attachment to a human. A hunter, no less, a profound violation of their most sacred laws. Lyra, usually a solitary and enigmatic figure, had become subtly more vibrant, a faint glow in her ancient eyes, a lightness in her step that had not been there for centuries. This newfound vitality, so unlike her usual detached demeanor, was a red flag. Perhaps a jealous former lover, a vampire named Valerius, whose possessive gaze had always lingered on Lyra, noticed her changing patterns, her increased vitality, or the faint, lingering scent of human warmth on her. A scent that, to a vampire, was as distinctive as a fingerprint. Ancient laws and traditions were being broken, and the council, with their vast network of spies and informants, would not tolerate such transgressions. The air in the vampire enclaves, usually heavy with the scent of old blood and power, now carried a faint, unsettling undertone of impending judgment. The tension mounted with each passing day. Ilara found herself constantly looking over her shoulder, her hunter's senses now hyper-aware of the scrutiny from her own kind. Every hushed conversation, every lingering glance, felt like an accusation. Lyra, too, felt the subtle shift in the currents of her world, the increased surveillance, the colder reception from her peers. They were both walking on a knife's edge, their secret a fragile thing, constantly threatened by exposure. A close call. One night, as Ilara was meeting Lyra in a deserted, rain-slicked alleyway, a patrol of hunters, led by Anya, suddenly rounded the corner. Ilara's heart leaped into her throat, the familiar surge of adrenaline mixed with pure terror. Lyra, with a lightning-fast reaction, used her powers to create a diversion. A sudden, violent gust of wind that sent debris scattering, or a momentary illusion that distorted the hunter's vision. It was just enough. Ilara melted into the shadows, Lyra vanishing moments later, leaving Anya and her team bewildered and frustrated, but with a nagging sense that something was deeply amiss. The near discovery left them both shaken, the thrill of their forbidden love now laced with a bitter taste of fear. The stakes for discovery increased exponentially, the consequences potentially devastating for them both. They were no longer just falling in love. They were actively defying their entire worlds, and those worlds were closing in. The near discovery had been a chilling wake-up call, a stark reminder of the precarious tightrope they walked. The intoxicating haze of their early passion was now tinged with a bitter taste of fear, yet it only seemed to deepen their desperate need for each other. The internal conflict intensified for both Ilara and Lyra, tearing at the very fabric of their beings. Ilara struggled profoundly with her betrayal of her family, her lineage, and her sacred duty. The faces of her kin, lost to vampire attacks, flashed before her eyes, accusing her. The weight of generations of vengeance pressed down, a crushing burden. She saw the grim determination in Kale's eyes, the righteous fury of Anya, and knew that by loving Lyra, she was spitting on everything she had been taught, everything she was supposed to be. The guilt was a constant, gnawing ache in her gut, but the love, the profound, consuming love she felt for Lyra, was an undeniable force, a fire that burned away all logic. How can I betray my blood? How can I choose this monster over my purpose? Her mind screamed, but her heart, her body, yearned only for Lyra. She found herself making excuses, fabricating reports, and constantly looking for ways to slip away, each deception a fresh wound to her conscience. The guild, once her sanctuary, now felt like a prison, its rules and expectations suffocating her. Lyra, in turn, grappled with the immense danger Elara posed to her immortal life, and the even greater threat her own existence and their forbidden love posed to Elara's fragile mortal safety. She knew the wrath of both their worlds, ancient and unforgiving, could crush them without a second thought. The Vampire Council's subtle probes had become more direct, their questions sharper. Valerius, her former lover, a vampire of ancient power and chilling possessiveness, made his disdain for her human entanglement clear, his eyes burning with a dangerous blend of jealousy and contempt. Lyra felt the tightening noose of her own society, the expectations of her kind to remain aloof, detached, and above all, loyal to the ancient ways. The thought of Elara, vibrant and warm, being extinguished by her world, or worse, by her own kind, filled Lyra with a cold dread she hadn't felt in centuries. Their secret meetings, once filled with tentative curiosity, now became desperate, clandestine affairs, charged with the weight of their impossible situation. They met in the deepest hours of the night, in the most forgotten corners of the city, their conversations hushed, their glances fraught with unspoken anxieties. They argued heatedly about their future, the sheer impossibility of it all, the sacrifices required. "This cannot last, Lyra," Elara would whisper, her voice raw with frustration and fear. "They will find us. They will destroy us." Lyra would counter, her voice a low, soothing balm, yet with an edge of ancient resolve. "Then we will fight, little hunter. We will fight for what we have found." Tears were shed, voices were raised in frustrated desperation, but ultimately, neither could deny the profound, consuming feelings they shared. Each argument, each moment of despair, was followed by a desperate, passionate reconciliation, where their physical connection became a refuge from the crushing weight of their reality. The intimacy between them deepened, driven by the constant threat of losing each other. Each moment together was precious, a stolen breath in a world that sought to suffocate them. Their kisses were more fervent, their embraces more desperate, their bodies clinging to each other as if to ward off the inevitable. The steamy elements were amplified by the fear, making every touch, every caress, a profound act of defiance. Elara would trace the ancient scars on Lyra's body, remnants of battles fought centuries ago, feeling the cool, smooth skin beneath her fingertips, a testament to Lyra's enduring strength. Lyra would bury her face in Elara's hair, inhaling her vibrant human scent, clinging to the warmth of her living body, a stark contrast to the cold loneliness of her immortality. Their lovemaking became a desperate affirmation of their bond, a silent scream against the forces that sought to tear them apart. It was a fusion of souls, a desperate clinging to the only light they had found in their shadowed existence. The longing was almost painful, a constant thrum beneath their skin, a desperate need for the other that transcended all logic, all duty, all fear. They were two outcasts, bound by a love that was both their greatest strength and their most dangerous vulnerability. The air in their secluded meeting spots, once a comforting balm, now felt heavy, almost suffocating. A persistent chill, unrelated to the night's temperature, seemed to cling to Elara, raising the hairs on her arms. A prickling sensation, like unseen eyes on her back, became a constant companion. She dismissed it as paranoia, a natural side effect of the dangerous game she was playing, of the profound guilt and fear that now intertwined with her desperate love for Lyra. Yet the unease persisted, a low hum beneath her skin. Lyra, too, felt a subtle shift in the city's hidden currents. The whispers among her kind had grown louder, the glances from the council members sharper, colder. Valerius's presence, once a distant annoyance, now felt like a predatory shadow, always lurking just beyond her sight. She noticed subtle changes in the patterns of the city's night watch, a new vigilance in certain districts, a tightening of the unseen net. She shared her concerns with Elara, their voices hushed, their fingers intertwining in a desperate attempt to ground each other amidst the rising tide of apprehension. "Something is wrong," Lyra would murmur, her brow furrowed with ancient wisdom. "The air is charged, like before a storm." The trap was meticulously laid, a cunning snare designed to expose them both. It wasn't a crude ambush, but a psychological and tactical masterpiece, orchestrated by either the hunters, the vampire council, or perhaps, in a terrifying turn, a combined unsuspecting effort, each side manipulating events to corner their perceived enemy. For Elara, the bait came in the form of a fabricated intelligence report. A new, highly dangerous Crimson Weaver sighting was reported in a derelict, abandoned theater on the city's outskirts, a place known for its labyrinthine corridors and multiple escape routes, a perfect hunting ground. The details were too specific, too perfectly aligned with Lyra's known patterns, designed to draw Elara in to isolate her. Kale, her mentor, assigned her the solo mission, his eyes holding a strange, unreadable glint. Anya, her rival, offered a saccharine good luck, her smile too wide, too knowing. Elara, blinded by her desire to protect Lyra, to prove that the true monsters were elsewhere, and perhaps to find Lyra there, walked straight into it. Her hunter's instincts, dulled by love and denial, failed her. Simultaneously, for Lyra, the lure was a summons from the ancient vampire council. A rare, mandatory gathering, disguised as a discussion about the rogue vampires, was called in a remote, consecrated catacomb, a place where her powers would be subtly dampened, her escape routes limited. Valerius, with a chillingly polite demeanor, personally delivered the summons, his eyes gleaming with a malicious satisfaction Lyra couldn't quite decipher. She felt the subtle shift in the catacomb's ancient energies, the faint, almost imperceptible wards that would bind her, but the summons was absolute, defying refusal. She went, knowing it was a risk, but compelled by the ancient laws of her kind, and perhaps a desperate hope that she could somehow protect Elara from afar, or uncover the full extent of the threat. The night of the trap arrived, heavy and oppressive. Elara moved through the decaying grandeur of the abandoned theater, her silvered dagger gleaming faintly in the moonlight filtering through shattered skylights. The air was thick with dust and the ghosts of forgotten performances. Every shadow seemed to stretch, to hold a hidden presence. She felt the familiar hum of something nearby, but it was different now, tainted, not Lyra's intoxicating aura, but a cold, calculated energy. A sense of profound dread settled in her gut, a chilling realization that she wasn't the hunter tonight. She was the prey. The silence was too perfect, the air too still. At the same moment, deep beneath the city, Lyra entered the ancient catacombs. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth and ancient stone, and the subtle, oppressive hum of arcane wards. The council members were already there, their faces unreadable masks in the flickering candlelight. Valerius stood apart, a faint, cruel smile playing on his lips. Lyra felt her powers subtly recede, a dull ache behind her eyes, the ancient magic of the place binding her. She looked into the cold, judging eyes of her council, and then, with a horrifying clarity, she understood. They knew. And they had trapped her, not for her crimes against their laws, but for her love, for Elara. The realization hit them both simultaneously, a shared, agonizing gut punch across the city. They weren't hunting, they were being hunted. And the bait had been each other. The immediate consequences were dire. Capture, betrayal, and the terrifying prospect of forced separation under the hostile, unforgiving eyes of their respective worlds. The silence in the theater was broken by the click of a safety being released. And in the catacombs, the heavy stone doors swung shut with a resounding thud, sealing them both in. Their worlds had finally converged, not in love, but in a trap. The silence in the abandoned theater shattered with the deafening click of a crossbow safety, followed by the whir of a bolt narrowly missing Alara's head, embedding itself with a sickening thud into the crumbling plaster behind her. Traitor! Anya's voice, sharp and laced with venom, cut through the darkness. From every shadow, hunters emerged, their silvered weapons glinting in the faint moonlight, their faces grim masks of accusation. Kale stood at the front, his eyes, usually so paternal, now cold and hard as flint. "We knew you were compromised, Alara," he stated, his voice devoid of emotion. "You led us right to her, didn't you?" The accusation stung worse than any strike. Ilara's heart plummeted. They weren't here for Lyra. They were here for her. And they knew. At the very same moment, deep beneath the city, the heavy stone doors of the catacombs slammed shut with a resounding thud, echoing ominously through the ancient space. The flickering candlelight cast grotesque shadows, making the faces of the Vampire Council seem even more monstrous. Valerius stepped forward, a cruel, triumphant smile stretching his lips, his fangs gleaming. "So, Lyra," he purred, his voice dripping with malice, "you thought you could defy us? Consort with a hunter. Such a pathetic human weakness." Lyra felt the arcane wards intensify, a dull ache behind her eyes. Her power subtly dampened, making it impossible to vanish or fight with her full strength. The council's eyes, ancient and cold, burned with a silent judgment that promised agonizing retribution. They knew. And they had trapped her. Not for her crimes against their laws, but for her love. For Ilara. The realization hit them both simultaneously. A shared, agonizing gut punch across the city. They weren't hunting, they were being hunted. And the bait had been each other. The immediate consequences were dire. Capture, betrayal, and the terrifying prospect of forced separation under the hostile, unforgiving eyes of their respective worlds. In the theater, Ilara moved on instinct, her training kicking in despite the emotional devastation. She parried Anya's furious lunge, the clash of silver on silver ringing sharply. "She's not what you think," Ilara shouted, desperately trying to reason, to explain, but her words were lost in the shouts of her former comrades. They attacked as a unit, a relentless, silver-tipped tide. Ilara fought defensively, unwilling to truly harm those she had once called family, but their intent was clear. Subdue her, capture her, punish her for her perceived treason. She was outnumbered, outmaneuvered, her heart heavy with the weight of her impossible choice. A hunter, once so focused, now found her resolve fractured. Suddenly, a shadow detached itself from the highest rafters of the theater, moving with impossible speed. Lyra. She had somehow escaped her own trap, or perhaps had anticipated it and found a way to break free. Her eyes, usually so serene, blazed with a fierce, protective fury. She landed silently between Ilara and the attacking hunters, a whirlwind of dark hair and pale skin. "Stand down!" Lyra's voice, amplified by an ancient power, resonated through the theater, momentarily stunning the hunters. "A vampire!" Kale roared, his face contorted with rage and disbelief. "She's here. Just as we suspected." "Ilara, you fool! She is no monster!" Ilara cried, stepping instinctively to Lyra's side, their backs now to each other, facing their respective enraged worlds. The lines were drawn irrevocably. The battle erupted. Hunters, fueled by righteous anger and generations of hatred, clashed with Lyra, who fought with a chilling precision, incapacitating rather than killing, her movements a deadly dance. Ilara, now fighting alongside her, found a renewed strength. Her silver dagger became an extension of Lyra's graceful strikes, a perfect complement. They moved as one, a seamless, terrifying partnership, a ballet of silver and shadow. Ilara's precision and agility, honed by rigorous training, combined with Lyra's ancient strength and supernatural speed. Ilara covered Lyra's blind spots. Lyra anticipated Ilara's next move. They were a force of nature, two halves of a dangerous whole. Meanwhile, in the catacombs, Lyra's escape had thrown the Vampire Council into disarray. Valerius, enraged by her defiance, lunged at her, his own powers unleashed. But Lyra, though weakened by the wards, fought with a desperate ferocity, fueled by the image of Ilara in danger. She dodged, parried, and struck with ancient, forgotten techniques, a whirlwind of motion against the static, arrogant power of the council. She was fighting not just for her freedom but for their future. Back in the theater, Anya, driven by a furious jealousy, lunged at Lyra, her silvered blade aimed for the heart. But Ilara intercepted her, their blades locking. "She's mine, Anya." Ilara snarled, a primal possessiveness in her voice she hadn't known she possessed. Their fight was brutal, personal, a clash of former allies. The confrontation was a chaotic symphony of violence, betrayal, and desperate love. Hunters and vampires, once sworn enemies, now found a shared target in the forbidden pair. Ilara and Lyra, side by side, fought not just for survival, but for the right to exist, to love, in a world that refused to accept them. Sacrifices were made. A sympathetic junior hunter, witnessing Ilara's anguish and Lyra's surprising restraint, created a momentary diversion, allowing them a precious few seconds. His act of defiance cost him dearly, falling under Kale's furious gaze. This loss, however, fueled Ilara's resolve, cementing her choice. They faced devastating losses, reinforcing the high cost of their love, but also solidifying their commitment to each other. The battle was fierce, desperate, and filled with emotional weight, each blow a testament to their impossible love. The last hunter fell, not to Lyra's lethal touch, but to a desperate, calculated strike from Ilara, who had finally fully committed to her choice. The theater, once a grand stage, was now a ruin. Shattered glass, splintered wood, and the lingering scent of ozone and silver. The immediate threat was neutralized, their pursuers scattered or incapacitated, but the victory felt hollow, tinged with a bitter taste of betrayal and loss. Ilara stood over Anya, who lay unconscious, her face a mask of furious resentment, and then looked at Kale, who was slowly pushing himself up. His eyes filled with a pain that mirrored her own. Her world, the only world she had ever known, was irrevocably broken. Lyra, too, bore the marks of the brutal confrontation. Though vampires healed swiftly, the arcane wards in the catacombs had left her weakened, and Valerius's attack had been particularly vicious. A faint, almost imperceptible tremor ran through her ancient frame, but her dark eyes, now fixed on Ilara, held an unwavering resolve. She had escaped the council, but she was now an outcast, a renegade from her own kind. The ancient laws she had always respected, however loosely, were shattered. They found each other amidst the wreckage, their bodies instinctively drawn together. Ilara stumbled towards Lyra, her legs unsteady, her silvered dagger falling with a clatter to the floor. Lyra caught her, her cool arms wrapping around Ilara, holding her upright. The contact was a lifeline, a profound anchor in the swirling chaos. They were battered, bruised, but alive and together. "It's done," Ilara whispered, her voice hoarse, burying her face in Lyra's shoulder, inhaling the comforting scent of jasmine and dark earth. "There's no going back." "There was never a back to go to, little hunter," Lyra murmured, stroking Ilara's hair, her voice a low, soothing balm. "Only forward." They made a definitive, unwavering choice, a silent pact sealed in the aftermath of battle, to abandon their old lives, their old identities, and forge a new path together, whatever the cost. This involved a symbolic act, a severing of ties. Back at the guild, Ilara left behind her family's ancient hunting journal, a relic passed down through generations, leaving a single silver dagger laid across its cover. A silent farewell, a declaration of her new allegiance. At Lyra's hidden lair, they destroyed the ancient binding wards, and Lyra, with a profound sense of release, shattered the glowing crystals that had once contained her power, choosing freedom over the constraints of her former life. A final, deeply intimate scene unfolded as the first faint hints of dawn began to paint the sky outside their temporary refuge. A forgotten, crumbling church crypt Lyra knew. They lay together, bodies entwined, exhausted but profoundly connected. It was a moment of profound vulnerability and absolute devotion, a quiet, powerful promise of a future built on their love, even if it was one lived on the fringes, always looking over their shoulders. Ilara traced the perfect line of Lyra's jaw, her fingers lingering on the faint, almost invisible scars that spoke of centuries of survival. Lyra held Ilara close, savoring the warmth of her human skin, the steady beat of her heart, a constant reminder of the life she had chosen to embrace. "Are you afraid?" Ilara whispered, her voice barely audible. Lyra kissed her forehead, a soft, lingering touch. "Of what we face. Perhaps, but not of you. Never of you." Her voice was filled with a tenderness that made Ilara's heart swell. "We will find our own way, Ilara. Our own dawn." A glimpse into their life months or years later. They are still together, still on the run, moving from city to city, always one step ahead of the lingering shadows of their past. They have learned to adapt, to blend, to live in the liminal spaces between worlds. They are a pair of ghosts, whispers in the night, but they are together. They find solace in their shared intimacy, their love a constant, burning ember against the cold indifference of the world. Perhaps they have found a small, hidden community of other outcasts, or they exist solely for each other, their bond a universe unto itself. They continue to fight the truly monstrous, the uncontrolled, using their combined unique skills to protect the innocent, not out of duty, but out of a shared, fierce compassion. Their existence is a testament to the enduring power of their forbidden love, a love that has transcended ancient hatreds and forged a new path, proving that even in the deepest darkness, a new dawn can always break. The story ends with them, hand in hand, looking out at a new city skyline, ready for whatever challenges lie ahead, their love a silent, unbreakable promise.